The map of our world is about to change. I'm talking about the continent of Africa splitting into two.
Africa is undergoing a dramatic transformation, a process so extraordinary that it's reshaping the continent itself. The Earth's crust beneath East Africa is breaking apart, tearing one of the largest landmasses on the planet into pieces. The Somali and Nubian tectonic plates are pulling away from each other, and a rift is expanding at an almost imperceptible rate, and it's giving way to an ocean that would take the world with it. In this video, we're going to bring you all the information about what's going on, and if there's a way we'd come out of this in one piece.
An entirely new ocean could emerge in the African continent. Reports say two sections of Africa, of the continent, have started to move apart.
The event that triggered global awareness, the 2005 Dabahu eruption. The seismic activity leading up to the 2000 quakes, which caused the Earth to rumble continuously. For residents who had no warning or context, it seemed as though the ground beneath their feet had turned volatile overnight. Each quake was a signal, a momentary burst of energy released as the Earth's crust pulled apart. Beneath the surface, tectonic plates were tearing from one another, and magma was surging upward into the fissures created by their separation. The scientific community took notice as instruments recorded this rare alignment of seismic and tectonic events, and an unprecedented rifting process was set into motion. While small earthquakes are common in tectonically active zones, such a concentrated sequence pointed to a much larger event brewing underground. On September 26, 2005, the Dabahu volcano erupted. Magma pushed to the surface with violent force, ejecting ash, molten rock, and gases. While the eruption was not explosive by significant numbers because of the sudden upheaval, the loss of livestock exacerbated the human impact of this disaster. The displaced communities faced immense challenges in the aftermath. Food insecurity became an immediate concern, as did access to clean water. Relief efforts struggled to reach some of the most affected areas, further showing us the vulnerability of those living in the Afar Depression. Yet, amid this human suffering, a global community of geologists and seismologists had their eyes fixed on what the region was revealing about Earth's inner workings. What made the 2005 Dabahu eruption more than just a regional disaster was the scale of geological transformation it triggered. In the days following the eruption, 37 miles of fissures opened up across the Earth's surface, stretching the landscape like a wound tearing deeper. These fissures weren't just shallow cracks. They extend forces of the Earth in action. The rifting was driven by the divergence of the Somali plate and the Nubian plate, two tectonic boundaries under incredible tension. As these plates drifted apart, the thin crust overlying them fractured, creating pathways for magma to rise to the surface. The Dabahu eruption became a rare opportunity to observe rifting on a human timescale. Unlike most tectonic processes that take millions of years, the activity at Dabahu unfolded over days, weeks, and months, allowing scientists to document and analyze each step of the process with unprecedented precision. GPS sensors and seismic equipment captured data showing that the 37 miles of fissures represented the initial stage of an ocean-forming rift. The Afar region was, essentially, laying the groundwork for the eventual creation of a new sea. These findings shed light not only on the tectonic processes governing the tear apart with enough tectonic stress. Magma, surging from below, acted as a force multiplier, pushing the plates even further apart. For researchers, this alignment of forces was a textbook case study for understanding the mechanics of plate tectonics. While the 2005 Dabahu eruption marked a turning point in scientific awareness, it was just the beginning. Subsequent studies and ongoing tectonic activity revealed even more about how this rifting process would shape the continent and its people in the coming millennia. But what makes the Afar Depression so unique? And why does this region seem destined to transform Africa's geography? Understanding the East African Rift. The East African Rift is one of Earth's most striking geological features, stretching roughly 3,000 kilometers from the Afar Depression in Ethiopia, down through Kenya, Tanzania, and into Mozambique. This vast rift marks the boundary between two tectonic plates, just splitting the African continent in two. it's also creating entirely new geological structures, like valleys, fissures, and even future coastlines. Unlike the relatively slow tectonic shifts happening in many other parts of the world, this rift is active enough to be observed in human timeframes. The East African Rift owes its activity to one key driver: magma. Below the Earth's surface, magma wells up from the mantle, intruding into the rift and creating pressure that pushes the Somali and Nubian plates apart. As these plates drift away from one another, the crust in the rift zone becomes thinner and more fragile, forming fissures and fault lines. Magma intrusion is a core mechanism of this process, as molten rock finds its way into these fissures, cooling and hardening to form new crust. Over time, this creates a continuous cycle of destruction and renewal. Older crust is broken up with water, as seen in the region's iconic lakes like Lake Tanganyika and Lake Malawi, which trace the rift's trajectory. In total, this ongoing activity has already created one of the most geologically diverse landscapes on Earth, filled with volcanic activity, hot springs, and fertile soil. Over time, the forces pulling the Somali and Nubian plates apart will widen the rift to the point where water begins flooding the area, likely from the Red Sea and Indian Ocean. When this happens, Africa will split, and a new ocean basin will form between the Eastern Horn and the main body of the continent. This isn't mere speculation, it's an inevitability dictated by the principles of plate tectonics. Similar processes have happened before, most notably during the breakup of the supercontinent Pangaea. Around 180 million years ago, the Atlantic Ocean began to form when tectonic plates tore apart landmasses that would eventually. Satellite observations have shown that the rift is widening at an average rate of a few millimeters per year. Over geological timescales, this steady movement will result in the rift becoming unrecognizable from what it is today. When the ocean finally forms, it will not only change the physical geography of Africa, but will also reshape the global map. Future generations may recognize a continent split into two distinct regions, with coastlines bracketing the newly formed ocean. The formation of a new ocean will dramatically alter the climate, ecosystems, and biodiversity of the region. Coastal areas will emerge where none previously existed, leading to new opportunities for marine habitats. However, this transformation will also pose significant challenges for human populations, particularly those reliant on the land for agriculture and livelihood. In places like the Afar Depression, where fertile valleys and lakes provide sustenance for communities shaping our world. Yet the ongoing changes in this region are part of a larger, more intricate geological narrative, one that hinges on the unique characteristics of the Afar Depression, the epicenter of rifting activity, the engine behind the rift. At the heart of the East African Rift's dramatic transformation is the slow but relentless movement of Earth's tectonic plates. The Nubian plate, which makes up most of the African continent, and the Somali plate, representing its southeastern portion, are pulling away from each other at a rate of up to 2 inches per year. Though seemingly negligible on human timescales, this divergence accumulates over millions of years, resulting in massive structural changes to the Earth's crust. This movement is driven by convection currents deep within the mantle, where heat from Earth's core creates circulating currents of molten rock. These currents generate enough force to fracture the overlying crust, form new crust. Over time, this cyclical process will expand the rift, eventually creating a full-fledged ocean basin. The mechanism is both simple and profound. As magma pushes upward, it weakens the lithosphere, causing it to fracture and thin. These fractures develop into fault lines and fissures, creating steep valleys and escarpments. In the East African Rift, the process is evident in regions like the Afar Depression, where active magma upwelling creates visible geological features, from basaltic plateaus to volcanic cones. This phenomenon of crustal creation is not unique to modern times. Around 180 million years ago, a similar divergent boundary formed between what are now the South American and African continents, leading to the formation of the Atlantic Ocean. The East African Rift offers a rare chance to observe this immense process occurring on land rather than beneath the ocean. The rift's progression is far from quiet. The East African Rift hosts some of the world's most active volcanoes, including Erta Ale in Ethiopia and Ol Doinyo Lengai in Tanzania. These eruptions not only release vast amounts of magma, but also reshape the surrounding landscape by depositing new layers of volcanic rock. Magma chambers beneath these volcanoes also play a critical role in weakening the crust, accelerating the rifting process. Another hallmark of the region is the formation of geothermal features, like hot springs and fumaroles, where heated groundwater escapes to the surface. These features signify the proximity of magma to the Earth's crust. Over time, the combined effects of plate divergence, magma upwelling, and seismic activity will lead to the formation of a new ocean basin. As the Somali plate continues to drift away from the Nubian plate, the rift will expand and eventually allow seawater and temporary lava lakes. Eventually, these features will give way to permanent water bodies, marking the birth of a new ocean. The geological processes driving the East African Rift are interconnected in profound ways. Plate divergence sets the stage, but its magma upwelling, seismic activity, and the resulting crustal deformation that turn this rift into an active zone of change. The rift serves as a powerful demonstration of the delicate interplay between tectonic forces and surface processes, creating both challenges and opportunities for the region.